Have you noticed that every video about books that will blow up your business is just a list of the same old books? Atomic Habits, Deep Work, The 4-Hour Workweek. And maybe it's got you thinking, this can't be it. There have to be other books that high-level entrepreneurs actually read. Well, there is. But you won't find them on any standard book list because those books are packed with watered-down mass-market advice. But in this video, I'm going to show you the book that changed my business forever and how its core idea helped me rewire how I perform under pressure, regain clarity, and unlock a new level of how I operate in both business and life. Let's dive in. So, I'll not keep you waiting. I'm going to tell you the book right now, but I must warn you, this isn't a business book, okay? But yet the principles and ideas in it can be used to change how you operate forever. So even if you've read it before, stick with me and I'll explain how to use it in business. The book is Man's Search for Meaning by Victor Frankl, who was a Jewish psychologist who survived Auschwitz and wrote about his experience from the perspective of a psychologist. It is by far one of my favorite books, and it's one of the handful of books I keep coming back to year after year and rereading and picking new lessons. But I know what you're thinking, how on earth is this going to change your business forever? Well, when I work with entrepreneurs, whether they're making 6 figures or 8 figures, they all face a common problem. The fact that you already know what you need to do, that important task, the difficult conversation, the big project, but yet you still don't do it. And look, there's always a good excuse in business. It's hard to find the time with all the fires that come up. There's all these small but truly unimportant tasks that pop up. There's other things you have to focus on. You have to go to the gym, you have a family life. So it's not as if you're lazy, okay? You're able to work hard, you're able to do the work. It's also not a knowledge problem. You know what you need to do. You know the task, the conversation, the project, and it's not even a motivation problem. You know you have to do the thing that will move your business forward and you want to do it. The problem is that when the moment comes to do the real work, to have that conversation, to start working on that project, to do that task, you don't choose your action. You react to your internal state. You feel uncertain, you feel tired, you feel overwhelmed, or as if you just have so much to do, and you let that feeling dictate your next move. And look, if you've watched any of my previous videos, you'll know that I'm huge on doing less, on eliminating tasks that quite simply don't matter, and ruthlessly focusing on those that do, because really that is the secret to not only growing faster, but also growing faster whilst working less. Because instead of wasting a pile of time and energy and effort on tasks that quite literally don't need to be done, or at least don't need you to do them, you put all that time and effort and energy into tasks that do matter. So you create leverage, you are more effective, and every unit of effort that you put into your work is more impactful, allowing you to make more progress in less time. But you cannot do that if you react to your internal state. And so that's the real enemy, or at least the first enemy that must be overcome. It's not your lack of time, it's not the complexity of your calendar, because these are easy fixes, at least when you know how, and it's one of the first things I help my clients at selfmastery.co fix. Links in the description, by the way. And this is where one of Frankl's main insights from the book hit me like a bloody truck, okay? Because I used to be there, I used to work all day and, sure, my business would grow, but damn, I'd work all day. I felt like I always had more to do and I never felt in control. At the time when I started my business, especially, I was studying finance at university. I was competing at a high level in weightlifting. I was trying to grow my business. I was creating content. I was trying to manage a relationship. I had so much to do, right? Just like you, just like every entrepreneur. Nobody is special. We all have so much to do. We all feel, at least at the start, and it's not the right way to feel, that we don't have enough time. You don't feel in control. So when I read this line, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and freedom. Think about that. A guy who was in Auschwitz is telling you that whatever you're experiencing, whatever happens to you, you can choose how to respond. You can choose what you do next and how you react. In that space, in that gap, that is where clarity is found. It is where your next level is built. It is where you take control, and it's a space that most people never use. It's in that space that you get to choose whether or not to put off the work, whether or not to do the important task, or have that difficult conversation, or rewire your systems, or fire that person that you know isn't a good fit and make that difficult decision. It's in that gap that you get to choose whether or not you do the thing that forces you to grow and improve, or whether you do the thing that keeps you stagnant, that keeps you stuck and potentially even regressing. So you see, any time resistance shows up, whether it's an excuse to avoid the work, or a want to scroll, or an effort to convince yourself to go and do some task that feels important but isn't, pause. Don't just give in to the resistance. Analyze it, see what the right thing to do is, and then do that thing, because you have a choice. So many people think they're just doomed to blindly follow their weaker thoughts and impulses and excuses, and that they have no agency, no control, and it's the biggest load of crap, and it's keeping you stuck. You can feel an excuse, right? Understand this. You can feel an excuse and still choose to do the work. You can have an impulse and still choose to ignore it. Something can happen to you and you can still choose how to react and what you do next. Because guess what? And I don't mean to get dark, but Victor Frankl literally recounted, and this is what he said, okay, not me, that those in concentration camps who chose to use the gap between stimulus and response and apply meaning to that chosen response as best as they could in their situation were more likely to survive. And so if people in a bloody concentration camp can choose how they react to a situation that you could never imagine and how they let it affect them, again, this is his recollection, not mine, so don't be getting mad at me for saying this, just go read the book, he says this, okay? Then you can choose to ignore an excuse or an impulse. You can choose to do the work. And look, I don't mean to get all Andrew Tate on you, but you're literally just typing on a keyboard. That is all you're doing. That's all you have to do. You just have to talk to somebody. You just have to type on a keyboard. The resistance is nothing but your inner self trying to hold you back. I go into this in other videos, but I'll save you the speech. But when you use that gap between stimulus and response, you get to choose what action you take. You get to choose the right action, the beneficial action. And look, there is no hack for this. There's nothing I can tell you to do to help you use this gap. You just have to do it. You have to understand the importance of the gap for you taking control of your actions and in turn your results, your business and your future. And then you have to use it. Because at the end of the day, most of your problems in terms of the actions you take and how you spend your time simply come down to a lack of awareness. If you're not aware of what you're doing or of what you're thinking, you're mindlessly drifting through life in a blur. You're just coasting with zero agency, zero control, and your results will reflect that, because the problem with humans is that we're hardwired for the path of least resistance to conserve as much energy as possible. So when you lack awareness and therefore control of what you do, you will do the easy option. You'll avoid the important work, you'll procrastinate whatever that thing is that you need to do and you know you need to do to grow the business. But when you become aware of the fact that you are alive, aware of the exact thing that you're doing in this exact moment, it is easy and obvious what the right thing to do is. And it all starts with learning to utilize this gap, this space between an input, whether it's an external event or an internal thought, and the thing you choose to do, the output. Sit in the gap between the input and the output, the stimulus and the response, and choose the right thing. Ask yourself, what response would the best version of me choose right now? Would he check notifications or finish the sales page? Would he put it off till tomorrow or press publish now? Would he do this stupid pointless task or do the hard but important task that matters? This is how procrastination dies. This is how you start to take control of what you do and in turn the results you get and the business you build. Because as soon as you're aware and as soon as you're conscious of what you're doing and what you're thinking and therefore the actions that you do, as soon as you're able to sit in that gap and choose the most beneficial action, you can start to actually do the harder things that are harder because they produce more value and therefore grow the business, and therefore you can increase your effectiveness by spending more of your time on more important tasks. Therefore your business grows faster, you work less, and you actually get the freedom that you started this business for. Procrastination does not die through pressure, okay, but through presence and through conscious response. But awareness is only part of this shift, okay? Because inside that space, you still have to make a decision. And that decision, whether you like it or not, becomes who you are. Because think about it. If the only things you can control in this life are your actions, are you really any better or any different than the actions you take? Are your actions not a reflection of you? Because every time you choose how to respond or the action you take, whether it's mindless or conscious, You're casting a vote for the type of person that you're becoming. The reason procrastination keeps winning, the reason you keep succumbing to resistance, is because you keep reinforcing the identity of someone who avoids hard things by continuously putting off the important work, by continuously putting off planning that project, by continuously putting off that hard decision. That doesn't change by doing more, okay? Because if you think of a basic system, we have an input, process, output. If your output, the results that you're getting, are not the ones you want, doing more of the input doesn't change the output. It only exaggerates it. So by doing more of whatever you're doing, you're not going to change it. What you have to do is change the input. You have to change the actions you take to change the output that you get. It changes by responding differently, even in the smallest of moments that seem so stupidly unimportant. You know, like let's say every day you wake up, you tell yourself, I'll write that email later. Okay, no big deal. I'll record the content when I'm in the mood. Okay, sure, makes sense. I'll get serious next week. Yeah, okay, why not? That's a problem. Might not seem it at the time, but that's a problem because you're not just avoiding tasks. You're training your subconscious to avoid tension, to choose the easy option. You're reinforcing the identity for creating a repeated experience of what you do, of someone who waits, of someone who delays, of someone who reacts, of someone who has no control. And here's the thing about your identity, right? Your identity is simply a collection of beliefs you have about yourself and the world. And you cannot act outside of what you believe to be true. Quite simple, okay? But if you step into that space between stimulus and response and you choose differently, you start to build a new identity, one small choice at a time. And this is where power starts to stack. You sit down, right? You feel the resistance, the block. You notice the impulse to delay or the excuse to work on some other unimportant task. And instead of mindlessly giving in, you pause, you sit in the gap, you become conscious and you choose how to respond. You choose to respond like the version of you that executes no matter what, the version of you that would make you proud. Every time you do that, you shrink the old self and you reinforce the new one. And eventually that old version of you who reacted, who had no control, who procrastinated, who avoided the important work shrinks away. The new one becomes natural and becomes more prominent. That's not productivity, that's not a hack, that is identity transformation through repeated experience. So if you're stuck right now, if you keep putting off important tasks, waiting for motivation or waiting for the business to calm down or for some time to free up, slipping into old loops, it's not because you're lazy. It's not because you need motivation or you need the business to calm down or time to free up. It's because you haven't taken control of your actions. You're reacting mindlessly to emotions and events and triggers and impulses instead of responding consciously and choosing the actions that you take. You're seeing an impulse, a feeling, an emotion that is fleeting and changes every 5 seconds, every second. You're seeing that as a way of reality, a fact, a thing that you have to listen to, when in reality it's not. It's simply an input that you can choose to ignore. You get to choose the output by sitting in the gap and choosing what you do, by being conscious. And so you procrastinate simply because you haven't learned to pause inside that space that matters most. And look, this isn't easy, okay? I'm not going to kid you. The gap between stimulus and response is invisible. It's so bloody small, but the more you do it, the easier it gets to sit in. And it's where your power lies. It's how you take control of your literal life, business, and future, because you get to take control of your actions and you stop mindlessly choosing the easy path. You stop procrastinating. It is that simple because you're conscious and you choose, oh, this is the obvious thing to do. I'm no longer blinded by my fleeting and wrong emotions that are designed just to keep me safe. You get to choose the right thing. And most people never step into this gap. So next time resistance, excuses, impulses, or whatever else hits you, pause. Choose the identity that you want to reinforce, the person that you want to become, and then respond consciously. Don't react. If you do that consistently, you'll do the important work that matters. But of course, if your identity's in the wrong place, full of limiting beliefs, this is going to be bloody hard. So check out this video here on screen, and I'll show you how to fix that so that you can make doing the right things in your business easy so that you can work less and profit more.